Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Gold, and I'm the Executive Director of RiverCog. And joining me this evening is our Senior Transportation Planner, Rob Harriman, who will be giving our presentation. But before we get started, I'd like to go around our virtual room and do some introductions. So why don't I call on people and you can introduce yourself. So I see on my upper left, Mary Stone. So say hello, Mary.
Hi, everyone. I'm a member of the RiverCog Planning Committee and also the Lime Planning and Zoning Commission.
Welcome. Next I see is Cindy Lignar. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Happy holidays too. I'm Cindy and I'm from Chester. I'm the Chester alternate member for the Regional Planning Committee and love it. And then also I'm on Chester Sustainability Committee. I'm a public health nurse and a few more things.
Welcome. We're glad you could be here.
Thank you.
All right, next on my screen I see is Lori McElwee.
Thank you, Sam. I'm the South Central Regional Mobility Manager, and my position is made possible because the COGS and the transit saw early on that individuals with disabilities, seniors, and veterans needed help with information for transportation. So I do that all day long. I'm really excited to be in your region as part of my region that I serve. And doors recently have just started opening and people wanting to give me grants and partnering. And I'm used to Sam saying yes to me all the time. I know it's going to happen someday. He's going to say no, but he never has. And I'm just really loving this region and the care that you give to your seniors and individuals with disabilities and veterans. So thank you. And I appreciate you helping me, Sam.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you for being here. Next, I see Laura Francis. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Francis, the former First Selectman of the town of Durham. I'm also the Deputy Director and Director of Transportation Planning at the South Central Region Council of Governments, and very involved right now in updating our plan too. So I have two hats here. I'm happy to participate in a meeting of my home COG and picking up a few tips for my new COG.
Great. Oh, glad you could join us, Laura. Next, I see Selectman Jim Irish. Say hello.
Hi, that's my introduction. Jim Irish, a selectman from the town of Middlefield, Connecticut.
Great. Next, I see Nick Dimitriades. You say hi.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Sorry, it's a little dark over here. I don't know if you can hear me. Hi. I'm Planning and Zoning Commission in Cromwell and a member of the RiverCog. Glad to be here tonight with all of you.
Great. Thank you. Next on my screen, I see Catherine Johnson. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Middletown. I'm an architect and town planner. And can't wait to hear what's going to happen tonight. Thank you.
Great. All right, next, I'm going to call on Raul. Say hello.
Hello, how are you? Adam, so a member of the Regional Planning Committee for RiverCog.
Great. Well, thank you, Raul. Next, I see Frank DeFelice. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. My name is Frank DeFelice. I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning and the Inland Wetlands Agency for the town of Durham. But I'm also serve as the chairman of the Regional Planning Commission for the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Frank. And next I see Darlene Briggs. Hello. Darlene serves on our board on the behalf of the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce. And Darlene, I'm sure you wear other hats. I don't know if she can hear us or not, but Darlene is she comes from Westbrook, and hopefully she can be able to hear and participate in the meeting. Next, I see Carol. Why don't you introduce yourself? If you're there, Carol.
She's muted.
Yeah, she's muted. Well, I'll skip over Carol while Carol is getting unmuted to introduce herself. Kim Lassay, our friend up at DOT. Say hello.
Good evening, everyone. Kim Sabio, Chief of Policy and Planning at Connecticut DOT. And thanks very much for the invite, Sam. And just here to listen in and help build our partnerships and see what you've got going on and what you've got planned for the years to come. So thanks again for letting me in.
Great. And then last but not least, we have our Senior Environmental Planner, Margot Burns. Why don't you say hello? From RiverCog.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Margot Burns, as Sam already introduced me, Senior Environmental Planner at RiverCog.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Carol is unmuted, so you might as
Oh,
well.
Carol, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Carol, if you'd like to.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I own a small business in Chester, and I'm just really interested in regional transportation. So thank you so much for letting me attend.
Great. Well, thank you, Carol. Before I turn it over to Rob Harriman to give his presentation, I will tell you that RiverCog hosts one of the state's metropolitan planning organizations, which are federally designated organizations responsible for long-range transportation planning. Our Metropolitan Transportation Plan is our regional transportation plan, and we update it every 4 years. And you're going to hear all about it from Rob, and we're very grateful that you're here this evening to participate in this process. So with that, I will turn it over to Rob Harriman.
Yeah, sure. I'll be fairly quick because we really want to hear more from everyone else who's at the meeting rather than me. But if we can share my screen, I will pull up a few slides. Let me find it. There we go. Oops. Okay, yeah, this is the update of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The update's going to run from 23 to 2050. Basically, federal regulations do require it's a short-term and long-term strategy. There's a 20-year planning horizon. It's updated every 4 years. So that's pretty much what we're required, as an MPO. It's a 3C process, which is continuous, cooperative, and comprehensive. As part of federal transportation planning regulations, there are various emphasis areas that all the plans must incorporate, and these are things like economic vitality, safety, security, accessibility, and things like that. The new IJA Act does have some new emphasis areas, but it doesn't specifically mention for the Metropolitan Transportation Plans. It says they are to be incorporated into the UPWP and MPO planning, but it doesn't specifically say the plan itself. So I probably will mention some of those briefly in the plan, but not go into it in any detail, because typically the emphasis areas carry over from all the federal transportation bills, which roughly come out every 4 years. So it's kind of ongoing. It's not like the new ones supersede the old ones. It's just an add-on of all those. Our current RiverCog plan, let's see here, is from 2019 and 2015. We did the first plan for RiverCog, and that was basically after the mergers of Estuary RPA and Midstate RPA. Chapters include things such as there's an introduction, there's demographics, basically the existing system, transportation planning, which basically includes things such as that's the integration of transportation and the environment and transportation and housing and things like that. Specialized planning, we'll probably find a better title. I've never really cared for that, but that's just the various things we do, such as congestion management and incident management and things like that. The municipal priority section is a section, it's basically a wish list from all the towns of various projects and things they would like. The financial plan, which goes out through 2050, is basically the amount of money that we have for both highways and transit. And then there's appendix that includes things basically such as environmental justice review and things like that. Let's see here. We are at the phase right now, and we're looking putting the plan together. We basically started over a year ago, working with all the towns, and we're working with DOT and other agencies. We hope to have a pretty decent draft in early February, about which time the state DOT should also hopefully have the air quality conformity determination. Once that's out, we will have a formal 30-day public comment period. And hopefully we will get the plan approved at our March 22 or March 22 and 23 MPO board meeting. The plan is on our website. It's been, circulated for a little while in the towns, things like that. So it's really about all I have at a presentation for now. What we did was, there was a meeting last week, an in-person meeting, and it basically was, going to do a SWOT analysis, where people just stick their Post-it notes up on the, phone boards, and we go over and discuss it. But since we're at a in-person meeting here, we can probably just talk about things we want to talk about. So that's where it stands for now, and I will stop sharing this. And if we just want to, talk about various issues that anyone might have in the region, things that are working, things that aren't working, things you'd like to see in the plan, we can just open it up for discussion.
And what the way that we will handle this is that hopefully by now you know where to find the raised hand function, which is under reactions on the bottom of your screen. Of course, you can also turn your camera on and wave at us, and we will call on you. And your comments can be as big picture or as specific as you would like to make them. This regional long-range transportation plan is really meant to be long-term and dealing with the big issues that we see arising over the course of at least 25 years. But any of your comments or observations of deficiencies in our transportation network for any of any users of any mode of transportation is valuable feedback for us as we begin to create this update to our regional transportation plan. So with that, I know that we have a number of very capable people who have lots of ideas. So let's turn it over to one of you to either ask some questions or make some comments about transportation issues that you see in our region. Raul, go ahead. And you're muted, so unmute yourself.
I just have a question. A fair amount of work went into the previous plan, the one that's current.
Yes.
Would there be any point in doing some sort of review as to seeing whether all those wonderful objectives that you worked so hard on were accomplished or not, and what was left out? Or was that sort of a hopeless exercise because all of this is just a matter of satisfying federal requirements for money?
So okay, so I think you make some good points there. Well, first of all, it is a requirement for us to be able to for us and for the state of Connecticut to spend federal transportation funds that we receive in Washington, but that's not the reason why we do it. I do think that this plan is the first regional metropolitan transportation plan we're doing after the completion of our regional plan of conservation development, which was, of course, as you know, adopted last fall in 2021. And it's also it also can incorporate recommendations and findings from our regional housing plan. And then finally, we've had a seismic shift in a number of different things with COVID, and how and now we're finally getting good American Community Survey data that can start quantifying impacts from the pandemic. I think it's a worthwhile exercise in this to look at the goals and recommendations from the plan from 2014 and see what progress we've made. Although one thing that is a little awkward about these MTPs is that because they have a long-range time frame of 25 years, many of the recommendations are unfortunately way out in the future. And unfortunately, over my career, I've seen they get pushed back mostly because of funding inadequacies. But I think that would be a good practice to take a look at what, if any, progress we've made in the last 4 years.
Yeah, and Sam has mentioned too. I mean, we're basically, the intent is to keep the same format, but I know he had just mentioned the RPO CD and the housing plan, but also since the last update, there's been numerous transportation plans updates that are feeding into this. We created a new regional transportation safety plan, a new like PED plan, and also a transit integration study. So there's actually, 5, new whole regional studies that are all feeding into this plan that, weren't included, in the 2019 update.
Right, and actually what's, and so on some of them, let's say for transit recommendations of improving transit, that transit integration study, which looked at merging the 2 transit districts, actually has already occurred, and now they're looking at service improvements and service changes. And we were able to jointly hire a planner with the Estuary Transit District to help that happen. So there, even though the plan is a long term in its range of out years, we have seen some significant progress in improvements, and I think that merger of the transit districts is probably the most significant that I can think of. Laura Francis.
Hi, Sam. Are you planning to include any emphasis on transportation planning for our aging communities? It's happening all around, right? But particularly in the River Cog area, where our population is getting older. And in fact, most of our residents in almost every town now, right, are of that age bracket. And I'm thinking of doing, something with almost a separate chapter or emphasis on putting some kind of attention to road design and other transportation services that address the aging community.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent comment. In the recent planning work that we completed with our regional planning conservation development, and also the housing plan, the aging of our population, the aging of our demographics, and shrinking of household size is some of the most pronounced demographic changes that we've seen, and those trends are continuing, and unless we change something. And the transportation needs of an older population are not well met by what we have today. I think there are some new services, particularly ETD's Extra Mile, which is on-demand transit, which I think could be a robust model for providing more finely tailored transit services. But yes, no, we are a more suburban rural area outside Middletown, and that's very difficult to provide transit services, particularly the people who can't drive, and those who are, and also the rural nature of many of our roads in some of the more rural towns are not necessarily the easiest roads to get around if you're an aging driver. Lori, I was going to actually call on you. Go ahead, Lori.
Your question might have been better than what I'm going to say. Did you want me to speak on something in particular, or?
Oh no, I'm just thinking that Laura's comment is probably up your alley about as our regional mobility manager, that I think you might have some input on that.
Yeah, she really caught my attention with that. I know Eliza was at a recent meeting for the Connecticut Aging Collaborative. And I've just noticed that you guys are at every meeting with aging. I know I'm involved with South Central Agency on Aging, the North Haven Agency on Aging, and the statewide C4A Agency on Aging. So it's really important. They want to see what plans you're including with the senior population. And so that's another reason why I think my position is so important, because I'm out there every day networking and partnering with the agencies on aging and the other groups that have money and that maybe want to partner with my grant, with their grant, because it stretches so much further. But I also know a lot of grants that are in the community, new programs, grassroots, senior programs. So maybe when a certain program doesn't meet the need, I'll have a plan A, B, or C to other organizations that will help. For example, with Middletown, M7 has a grant where they will pay for half of a taxi program or charge $5 for the first 8 miles and then $2 a mile after that. And that always includes a caretaker and someone to go with them. Sometimes up to 3 people can go with them. A lot of times if they go to appointments, they may not remember. I know I have a hard time remembering everything the doctor told me. And then they want to give you 3 or 4 appointments on top of that. So the agencies on aging are starting to have grants that will have people come with them on their appointments to take notes and to get them there safely. And a lot of times if they have an appointment where they can get there, but on the way out, they need signed out because maybe they've had anesthesia or something. So there's just so many different levels for us to think about. I will say the estuary district is one of the best as far as thinking about seniors. They have programs. Joe Comerford doesn't say no to any program I ask him about, or partnering or going for certain grants. So I'm really proud about that. And I think there's always room for improvement and thinking about things, but I also know we do more than any other region in the state of Connecticut.
And Lori, thank you for those comments. And I'm going to share a link to the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative. They just presented to the COG directors this morning, and Laura Francis was there as well. And their new director, Alyssa Norwood, I think is a great resource to the state of Connecticut, and looking at the issues that we face as our population ages. And there's many issues when it comes to an aging population, but transportation in particular is an important one in regard to our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So thank you. I see Mary Stone has her hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi. If we're talking about aging, the town I represent, Lyme, has one of the oldest populations in the region, maybe even the state. And we have 0 public transportation, even though we're listed as a member of the 9-town transit agency. There is no anything on the schedule that runs through our town.
Yep.
So I'm constantly in my everyday driving, coming across people who really should not be behind the wheel of a car, but if they don't want to move somewhere else, they have to drive to get just the basic necessities of life. So something that passes through Lyme that could pick people up and take them to a place where they could get groceries and do simple banking transactions would be, I think, would be a big help to people.
Yeah, I think there might be some paratransit service that Lyme might get, but it's going to be very limited. And you're absolutely right. There's no fixed route buses that go to Lyme. There's no bus routes in Lyme, and the transportation options for people in Lyme are very, very limited. I do think that in our regional bus study that looked at merging our bus companies, I think Lyme and Old Lyme was an area where they have identified that maybe an on-demand transit service might work. I have to go back to that study, but that's something which it would be a recommendation from one of our completed transportation studies that might be relevant here. So thank you for raising that. Yeah, Lyme is has unique issues as being the smallest town population-wise in the region and quite rural. But still has an aging population that I think you are correct. It is, I think, the oldest in our region. So
yeah, and I don't think anybody here is asking for hot and cold running buses. We don't expect this to be Washington Street in Middletown, but
yeah.
but just some option where once or twice a day you could get to a population center, I think would serve the town well.
Anyone else want to make comments about either aging population or transit services? And just to remind you of the diversity of things we of course have 3 Shoreline East commuter rail stations in Clinton, Westbrook, and Old Saybrook. We have a transit hub also in Old Saybrook at the Old Saybrook train station. We have a passenger terminal in downtown Middletown. We also have some commuter bus service coming down from Hartford. Estuary Transit District also provides paratransit services throughout the region, although it's very limited in places. And those are our major transit services. But we also have pedestrian facilities, recreational trails, such as the airline trail, but also we have trails and walkways in Middletown, and proposals for trails elsewhere in the region. We also have a significant number of Blue Blaze hiking trails, and we do have in our town and city centers some significant sections of pedestrian sidewalks and sidewalk networks. Of course, this plan is meant for all users, not just cars. So other comments or observations of items of interest or concern about our transportation network? Go ahead, Raul.
As you know, the so-called blue rail trail or whatever it is, the
blue greenway,
has been a subject of interest for some time in the region, and I'm wondering whether I guess, as you know, there's an interest in not having freight train through that, yet there's also an interest in rehabbing the rail tracks, which are now impassable. And then there's interest in having some sort of non-rail use of that corridor. And I don't know if you address any of these points in your plan. I'd like to know what you say about them, and I can give you some opinions, but it's obviously important to some people.
So as you know, we did look at we did a couple studies along the rail corridor. One was looking at options for rail for this is the Valley Railroad line that goes from Old Saybrook all the way to Middletown. We looked at potential for commuter rail up to Hartford. We completed that in about 2015. We also had a landscape architecture study to look at opportunities to put a trail along the railroad line. So we do have those resources to pull upon, and I do know that the Blue Greenway is a newer proposal since 2019, but I think it's in line with recommendations we have in there for a couple of things, for opportunities for both river access, but also opportunities for for safe corridors for bicycles and pedestrians to be able to use. I think we'd like to talk to you further about your ideas of how much detail you want to get into. But I think our existing recommendations and potential future recommendations in the new document could support the concepts that have been put forward.
So I guess the reason I'm sort of more interested, besides the fact that it's always been a topic of contention, is that there is this federal infrastructure money that will be coming down the pike, if not this year, then at least in the next 2 years. And some people feel that this may be an opportunity to inject some money into improving the rail, the tracks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know of anything that is going on, and how does your plan, presumably that federal money would have to conform to the plan that you're now drafting? And I don't know how the two fit together.
So, so the city of Middletown and the Essex Steam Train have been very interested in bringing the steam train north into Middletown. Of course, as you observed, as you pointed out, in Haddam, there's a section that is not passable. The rails are not there, or and I think there's a missing bridge as well. So that is something of interest to the city of Middletown and to the steam train, but the cost of reestablishing that is prohibitive for either one. Of course, this is
right.
And this is also going through Haddam, that has which has adjacent property owners who haven't had a train go through there in many decades. So it's a difficult planning issue. There was talk with the city and the railroad about putting in for a RAISE grant, which is a US DOT transportation grant that for a project that would have economic development potential. I think that argument could be made for such a project, but the RAISE grant application I think just came out, and those conversations have not started with the steam train, or the city restarted with them. But that would, I think, be one of a good candidate for funding for improvements to that rail line. As for the concerns of some of the residents along the rail line that this will become a corridor for freight, our rail study showed there really weren't any major users along the corridor who would either generate or receive rail freight, and the lack of any port facilities along the rail line would also preclude it being used as a major freight route. And finally, the railroad is not maintained to a level to be able to accommodate heavy freight cars. It's right now maintained to a level for slow, relatively lightweight passenger service, which the Essex Steam Train provides. So I don't think the issue of freight has. I don't think any of the variables on that have changed. So, but that could be restated as well in the MTP.
Well, I guess my only suggestion might be that these requests for monies sometimes don't happen before the public eye. And so maybe, Sam, you could make it your business that when these things do start moving forward, that there be some sort of awareness by the community. Because as I said, it is controversial, but on the other hand, there are many people on both sides of the picture. And there's some people that feel that Haddam would benefit from having some sort of recreational facility going through it. All the way to Middletown, and others, of course, as you know, are not so happy. But you never know which way this will go. But it's unfortunate if it all happens behind closed doors.
Right, and I'll just the reality when we talk about the Valley Railroad is going up to Pratt & Whitney and Maromas. That section south is rented by the Essex Steam Train, and they have a long-term lease of, I think, at least 40 years left on that. So they're a long-term tenant, and they do have the right to operate even in the sections that don't have usable rail. So that is going to be the reality is they don't have the funding to be able to fix the rails through Haddam into Middletown. But I can tell you that if something was to move forward, I'll make sure that Haddam knows. Because I don't see any federal application for a RAISE grant being successful without regional support and without the neighbors also supporting it.
Yeah, and like you said too, I mean, both the HDR study there from 2014 or 2015, pretty much, did say commuter rail and freight rail. I mean, it's pretty much, not really a viable option just because of the costs and because of the, dynamics of the region. So.
All right. Any more comments on the Valley Railroad corridor? Any other comments or a discussion on other topics? Jim Irish, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a question, embarrassing question, but I went to your website and found the 2019 plan.
Yep.
I wasn't able to find the proposed plan, and I wondered if that is on the website available for review.
No, so this is the second of a series of meetings to sort of just meet with interested members of the public or our commissions to find out what is of interest to you today. The draft has not yet been written. So if there are pressing transportation needs or interests that you have, we want to hear them tonight. So when we start work on creating the draft plan, we know of topic areas that we may not know of, but are of interest to the region. So
no, I certainly understand. I guess I saw the beginning of the presentation, and it had a cover sheet that said 2022. And I was curious that I hadn't been able to find that. No problem. No problem.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier too, I mean, I would expect the same basic format as the existing plan, just with all the new inputs from the, all the various new studies that we've done. And even tonight, just talking about the, the older population things and stuff like that, and the, rail and other things we can, add into new sections. So.
And I also think taking into let's say our regional housing plan, which for the first time, housing planning is something that that the federal transportation law touches upon. So the feds want us to look at housing and how it interacts with the transportation network. And since we just completed a regional housing plan, we have some good input as to where what types of housing, where we would like to see more housing, and making sure that transportation investments support that type of development. So I think we're in a very good place to do a significant update using those completed plans as inputs. So Cindy, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
And thank you. Just curious. For design, the intersection on Route 9 with the lights at exit 15. Just curious, are there discussions about potentially, restructuring all of that area? Is there support for it as well? And are you working with the town of Middletown on that? Thank you.
The answer is yes to both of those. It is probably our most significant project, but also part of it is our most significant accident location. And Rob can talk more about the part of the improvements on the ramp and where that stands. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different projects there that will all have independent utility. If you're familiar with the area, you would know that our DOT started with the bump outs. And then they did the area in front of St. John's Square in the north end. And right now they are looking at closing off the access to, I can't think of the name of the street. On Route 9, where there's the access to that other neighborhood in the north end, to close that off and have the traffic run up on the old road over the at-grade crossing and up Portland Ave to the north end. So that's the next project that's happening. After that, there's the next one is the whole 17 interchange at the at the metered stop. That's already fairly well in design. That's a pretty significant project because it includes much more than just the just that metered ramp. It also, it closes the Coven ramp over there. There's a whole new crossing at what is it? Farther up over by the hospital where there's a diamond interchange there. So it's going to redo that whole area. So I mean, I think most of that's already in design at DOT. The next step was the actual removal of the lights project. That's been coming and going. DOT has brought that to the city on a few occasions, and it keeps getting revised every time. I don't think there's been a meeting since since COVID, so it probably has been 2 or 3 years. So I think it's just at this point it's been somewhat stalled as they just go through the other smaller scale projects that have the independent utility.
Thank you. Hopefully there'll be some movement on that sooner than later. Thank you.
Other transportation ideas, concerns, comments? And well, one thing I'll say is that the highlight is, as some of you know, we completed our first regional bicycle and pedestrian plan earlier this year, and that will also provide information for this metropolitan transportation plan that we didn't have before. And we all know that walkable and bikeable environments are typically more vibrant and more livable. And this is in line with our regional plan of conservation development that really focuses development in the town centers and trying to create vibrant town centers. Other comments from other attendees? Oh, thank you, Raul.
I don't.
Oh, you're raising your hand. Okay.
But a different topic along the lines of your question, which is that in a few days there'll be somebody making a presentation to the Haddam Development Committee on bike access from East Haddam over into Haddam and over on. Are you in touch with the people, our bike enthusiastic community, and drawing up the bike priorities for the region, or how is that? How are you handling these people? Because they're quite knowledgeable, and we don't know that.
I think let's see, Kim. Okay, so I think Kim was talking about the Route 9 project. So for everyone's information, the Haddam East Haddam Swing Bridge is going to be overhauled. The electronics and the electric motor are going to be replaced, and the bridge is going to be strengthened, and a walkway is going to be added to the bridge to allow for pedestrians and cyclists to be able to cross safely. I know that this is something that we've been supportive of for a long time, and we're very grateful to DOT to finding the money to make it possible. I am not aware of these conversations with the biking community, but I think this is something that needs to be discussed not only with the towns of the Haddam and East Haddam, but also with DOT as this project moves forward. Anna Bergeron is our state bike ped coordinator, as well as I think a number of other hats she wears. I think these are conversations that we should probably bring DOT in on, because they're going to have some opinions as to how this walkway is going to be marked and used. From what I understand of the width of the walkway, that there probably will be signs to ask cyclists to dismount and walk across. Whether that will happen in practice, I can't guarantee, but I don't think the walkway is up to a width that would make people comfortable walking and cycling at the same time. I do know that today, or not today, in the summer when the weather is a little nicer, groups of cyclists already cross the bridge, but they go in the traffic lanes. And they are able to do that more safely because they're in a group and they take up the whole lane. So I'd be interested in meeting these people. Raul, if you can share the information with me as to who's coming to have them to speak to you, but also if they don't mind connecting with DOT, I think that would be good.
Okay.
But we see that as a huge project for both towns and for connecting important tourist attractions on the west and east side of the river, whether you're the Essex Steam Train or the River House or the new sidewalks up to Tylerville, or if you're on the other side of the river, the Gelston House, Goodspeed Opera House, and potential redevelopment at the East Haddam Town Hall site. It connects two villages that are very dense in tourist attractions. So, all right, go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you, Sam. And I think that you're both referring to, Raul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just attended on the 8th an insert, a presentation by the group, and I think it's the same group you're talking about. It's about the Lower Connecticut River Valley Heritage Loop Trail. That's what it's called. And it's approximately 18 miles long that they're planning. They're working with the National Park Services. Rob Harriman and I have been involved in this too on the Chester end because there's a Chester Loop part of it now. There wasn't originally, but they included Chester. So it goes through East Haddam, yes, and through Chester too. So part of it's bike path, part of it's ped path. It is in the works, and I'm really excited that they're coming to speak with Haddam and to educate you more. And I think this is the same trail and route that you're talking about, Raul. Yes?
I think it is. I think it is, but I haven't attended this thing yet, so.
Okay.
I will have to tell you, but I appreciate that somebody at least knows about it.
Yes.
I think it's very exciting, and with regard to the problem of pedestrians versus bicycles, I'm sure that they're more experts than I am, but there are many ways to handle the problem, and one way to handle it is that you have priorities at different times of day. It really, if you ever try walking from Tylerville over to East Haddam, you'll find out that it's quite a long way, but on a bike it's not. So I think that reality will have to come to grips with that.
So the presentation was recorded, so they're supposed to send that out to everyone. And what I can do is find out from Bob Kastner. He's the head of this. He's the one who initiated it. He's on the Economic Development Committee in East Haddam. And so I'll try to contact him and see, and also Stephanie Stroud from the National Park Services, and see if we can't get that presentation for everybody. And I'll send it to you, Sam.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Oh, that's excellent. And I can, you'll notice in the chat that Kimberly Lassay from DOT has been chatting with, adding links to various projects that we're referring to. She just put up there the project website for the Haddam Spring Bridge. So, I've worked with the National Park Service on trails projects in the past. So they're a good group out of the National Park Service. So that's really great. I'm excited for us to get involved in that. And also thank you for bringing it up, because that's something which I think would be important for us to mention in the MTP.
Yeah, the preliminary map, I just pulled it up. It's actually in the bike ped master plan too. So if you just wanted to take a look at it, it's in the East Haddam section of the plan.
Right. Are there other people want to add additional comments about transportation projects or concerns or issues? One question that I have, and this is maybe a question for Kimberly Lassay from DOT or Laura Francis, is that this plan is intended to be, a long range plan. what are your regions and COGs doing in regarding self-driving cars, interconnected cars, and some of the technology that will probably be implemented in the next couple decades? Are you addressing that at all?
We briefly mentioned it. We don't know yet how we're going to do that. But I will say that I sat on the advisory. I do still sit on the advisory committee for the circuit rider position, and AAA is represented on that committee, and they scare me to death. Kim is laughing.
So there's two different AAAs. There's the Automobile Association of America, and there's also the Association of Aging. There's the senior services groups that are AAA.
No, this is the AAA on the northern part, not the AAA in my region.
Yeah, it's the Area Agency on Aging is the other AAA that would be concerned about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably worth a mention, right? Because it's certainly being discussed.
Yeah,
and what I noticed about our plan too is we don't really talk a whole lot about EVs either.
And I think that's something else that we need to talk more about.
Yeah. And now that the state has the plan, we probably need to mention it and refer to it and make a positive statement that we will work with the state to implement it.
And I see this as an intersection point between the previous comments about our aging population, is that self-driving cars, for those who can afford them, can provide mobility, but also provide potentially more accessibility for services like Uber or Lyft that could provide rides to people. But they come at a cost, both in cost to purchase, but also will come at a cost of jobs. So there's many concerns there. But
yeah. We do mention artificial intelligence. Does your plan do that?
It does not yet. But
yeah, the 2019 plan does have a couple paragraphs. It's not really a whole chapter. It's just a brief little section,
but I think people
there's
don't realize
there's far-reaching implications to AI in transportation.
I've attended a number of planning conferences where this topic has come up, and there's two big technologies. The first technology is self-driving cars being able to drive. And most new cars that come out today have some self-driving abilities already. My 2020 Hyundai does. It stays in the lane. But then there's the other element, which is interconnected vehicles, where vehicles are talking to each other, and then adjusting spacing and distancing and speeds based on what they're hearing from the cars in front or behind or on the side. There's a number of benefits to that for safety, but also for road capacity. So these technologies have I think it's going to be a very quick changeover, particularly for commercial vehicles. I think at first, but I think once the self-driving technology is safer in the number of accidents and fatalities than humans, then the arguments against them will be sort of be taken care of. There's of course lots of questions. I know, Kim, if you have any comments of what the state plans, how much you go into these new technologies and what you're seeing and maybe at the other MPOs.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that, Sam. I mean, it is new territory, right, that all of us are treading into. We're due, to get ready to do our new long range plan. We're probably hoping to initiate that in 2023. But as far, touching on CAV, we do have a few folks who are really on top of that. We did have a CAV summit actually a couple of years ago. And we are participating in a testing I believe AAA is involved in that one, and actually going to use Connecticut Fast Track to do some testing. So, we're keeping an eye on the technology. I think, we're seeing some changes in our technology already that we're really excited about is with our traffic signals. We're trying, some new traffic signals on the Berlin Turnpike, that are synchronized and can actually tell when there's an accident on another route and can prioritize and help clear out traffic. So it's not just cabs, right? I mean, the technology is changing around us as far as transportation. So all of these, I think, are, like you said in the beginning, Sam and Robert, it's tricky to do a long range plan because things like pandemics happen. And all of a sudden people are working from home and not commuting as much as they normally would be. And then you also have the technology changes. And, Laura, I'm glad that you mentioned NEVI as well. Where we did get approval, on our NEVI plan, which we're really excited about. So phase 1, we'll be rolling out, and then we'll be hoping to do solicitations, hopefully as early as next year, for those grant monies. So a lot of exciting changes in transportation. It's kind of a fun and yet very challenging time to be a transportation planner. Hopefully you'll see some more in our long range plan when we roll that out as well.
Before I call on Nick and Lori, I just want to make a comment. Kimberly made me think about IT and how broadband internet access we've become so aware of how important it is for our lives. And not that it wasn't important before the pandemic, pandemic just made us all acutely aware of it. Work from home has always been something that for decades has been something that on the transportation planning and DOT side that they have encouraged to help manage traffic. But it's now gone to places where levels of adoption that we never expected. I think we would probably be remiss in mentioning something about the importance of broadband internet and its interactions with the transportation system, whether it be providing Wi-Fi on transit or using technology such as the extra mile technology they do on-demand transit, or the ability of having broadband internet access at every address in Connecticut, and its ability to change or affect transportation, the need to travel and commute. So, but I think, but bringing up the item about smart traffic management through lights on the Berlin Turnpike and being aware of incidents on other major roadways, I think is a really interesting one, which I wasn't aware of. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, Sam, I think we're also planning to mention Wi-Fi on transit. It's proven, right, that commuters on trains want the Wi-Fi. They're working or they're playing,
Yep.
and that's factoring into their decision to commute using public transit. We now have to transfer that to transit, especially as we are working, especially between this, Rivercog and Scrog to interconnect transit. If we're going to ask people to spend more time on a bus, which we're hoping to do, right? We're going to need to provide internet that is reliable, high speed and reliable.
And along those lines, we just lost Kimberly. She's coming back. I do remember when the M8 cars, which are the current fleet of trains that run on Metro North, but also now run on Shoreline East, when those were spec'd, I remember former Commissioner Redeker talking about how they were built to provide Wi-Fi, although that capability was never pursued by DOT. But hopefully, we submitted comments to DEEP on their RFI on broadband, and we said we recommend the DEEP that they fund Wi-Fi on trains and buses in the state. But
yeah,
I see Nick has his hand raised, so go ahead, Nick.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can.
Good. Yep. So you touched for a moment on transportation as far as autonomous vehicles and linked vehicles. In my previous life, prior to going to the private sector, I always worked the director of information technology at the DMV, and here in Connecticut. And we were heavily involved with the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, AMVA. I would suggest that the state, from a perspective of vehicle automation and transportation, hook up to their website. I've written articles on autonomous vehicles and digitizing mobile credentials, and presented them on behalf of my company. But AMVA in itself is a leader in putting together specifications and guidelines for motor vehicle and motor vehicle related safety issues that deal with every motor vehicle in the contiguous plus Alaska and reaches over to Canada. So I think it would behoove, if you're starting to talk about autonomous vehicles, how they'll impact each DMV agency by the state. If you're talking about intelligent transportation, how it communicates, I think you won't be disappointed if you reach out or at least go to the AMVA website and see the number of working groups they have with each of the states. AMVA's broken down into regions, and we are in region 1 as Connecticut. But you'll see there's been a lot of headway made and a lot of information available that I think would be helpful to these studies. And I'm not sure if the state is or isn't aware of them, but they should be if they're not. So that's just my 2 cents.
Right.
I'm a DMV guy, nerd. So I grew up in DMV, so I know a lot about that stuff. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. And that's really useful information. Go ahead, Lori.
About 8 years ago, I was at a transportation expo in Chicago, and they were talking about autonomous vehicles. And he said he'd never looked out into an audience of so many straight faces before. We weren't real excited about it. We kind of felt like what we had would be fine. Plus, we knew our clients, as far as seniors, they weren't really buying it. But I feel like we had a window of trust. And then when those few accidents happened, it was like the trust went out the door and never to be had again. So I think, to Nick's point and to Sam's point, they're really going to have to do some convincing and giving some positions out just to address the safety piece alone to get a senior back in a vehicle like that. But it certainly would address so many. I mean, they've been doing it at Disney for years, the little trains that take people back and forth on the roads. So, I mean, that's something to be said. But as far as the vehicles, it's kind of scary for seniors at this point.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be there's definitely an issue of trust, and that's going to be it's going to take time for people to trust these vehicles, but there is a potential that this technology may eventually become safer than human drivers, and if and when that happens, I think people will suddenly prefer it. I don't know how soon that may come or if it will ever come, but I think that's something that we need to at least conceive of.
I was at the statewide C4A today, the Agency on Aging, and I was really happy to see that for once they did a survey statewide, and usually transportation's at the top of the list for needs. And today we got the results and transportation was number 5. So I don't know if they're finding all the regional mobility managers and paying attention to mobility guides, but they're starting to find the things that are out there. But to go from number 1 all the way to number 5, that's hopeful.
And that is hopeful. Let's hope that that's a sign of mobility managers doing a good job, and also that we're being more responsive to need. Let's hope that that's what that indicates.
Good point.
Go ahead, Raul.
Well, I was going to say that without going too far into the future, maybe some stress should be made to make sure we have charging stations in the area. I don't quite know how the strategy of Connecticut is regarding charging stations in areas such as ours, which are basically suburban, and where such public stations would presumably be put in what are now called gas stations. But that may be something you may want to address in the plan, is how that is done for the region. And the other point I think that's been made, there's a lot can be done to and is being done to automate the transit system When I go to New York, for example, I know that every bus has a transponder on it, so they, the central station knows exactly where your bus is. You yourself can just go on the web and find out that your bus is going to be here in 2 minutes from now, or 3 minutes, or 10 minutes. You can pay through your smartphone. Everything is done off your smartphone. And if you were the dispatcher, in reverse, you could, see how many people want transportation along the route before you send the thing over. So investments in just bringing the system up to date can make a much more efficient system and much more usable to the public.
And I'm very happy to report that our new transit planner, Brendan Garrity, who's working with ETD, is actually working on those projects. It's called AVL, Automatic Vehicle Location. He's implementing an AVL system for our buses. And also, I know there's been work on new fare collection media and how and making sure that people can pay by phone in the future. So those are all technologies which have become mature and we're actively working on implementing here. But yeah,
So, as long as there's money for it, thank you.
yeah, the good thing is that the technology that Raul was talking about, the vehicle location technology, I remember seeing 20 years ago when I was in graduate school. Now, and that was being implemented or pioneered by the Buffalo Bus Company and Niagara Frontier Transit Authority. But now it's become so commonplace, and cell phone data has become so much cheaper that it can now be implemented on relatively small bus companies like ours. So the technology does get cheaper, the data has gotten cheaper, and I think that's important. One thing I think with charging, I think that the emphasis on charging needs to be, we need a stronger emphasis on that than we did in our 2019 plan, but also identifying that there's going to be some major issues regarding charging. We all know that Eversource has warned us of some doomsday electric prices coming in January, and with a convergence of electrification, whether it be in automobiles or heating sources, the state has been pushing for air source heat pumps to try to get us away from oil and natural gas. We're going to have some major electrical issues it has increased demand. So I think the electrification of transportation isn't occurring in a vacuum. There's going to be other demands for it. So we need to be cognizant of that. It might be a little bumpy or a transition, but and the same with also transit buses. Connecticut is committed to electrifying its transit fleet. Those electric buses have different ranges. They have different operating characteristics, and also, unlike a car, the charging of those vehicles needs to be coordinated with the electric company because the batteries on those vehicles are huge. But that means retrofits for our bus storage facilities, and so that change from fossil fuels to electricity is going to be a huge one for transportation. It also one item that I will ask that you mentioned in this plan is about safety. Some of you heard earlier in the year there was a electric bus that did catch fire. I think it was in North Haven, and battery fires need to be put out differently than a regular gasoline or diesel engine fire. So I think that mentioning that in our MTP, I think it's also going to be important that our first responders know the different characteristics of electric vehicles versus gasoline or diesel vehicles. Other comments or questions or observations?
Yeah, while we're on the topic of just technology, I mean, I think just one thing that is important to note is that the MTP is updated every 4 years, so it does stay relatively current compared to some other plans. I mean, some plans could have a 10 or 20 year life, where it would be much, considerably more out of date. Where since this is updated on a regular basis at a fairly short interval, hopefully we can stay on top of things.
All right. As Rob mentioned, that this is a beginning of a conversation. This is not the end. So if you have ideas, if you have things that we didn't cover today, but you're laying awake in bed tonight and saying, "Oh, I should have said something to Sam and Rob," you can of course reach out to us. Let's see, I'm going to put both of our email addresses in the chat, although most of you already know how to reach us. And we can get we can talk to you about your concern and see about getting it addressed in our MTP. And if I don't see any other comments or questions or raised hands, I'm going to suggest that we adjourn for the evening.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Great. Well, well, thank you everyone for attending tonight. I think we have everyone's contact info. Carol, I'm not sure if we have yours. So if you would like to put that in the chat, we can add you to a mailing list for future updates.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you just just type your and if you want to send it to me privately, you can do that as well. I think you can, but if not, I can vouch for everyone on this meeting that they're all people who wouldn't send you any emails unwarranted. All right. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. And all right. And Carol, also you can check our website, rivercog.org, for updates as to upcoming meetings as well. So thank you.
Thank you, and have a great holiday.
Happy
Great.
holidays
Thank you
all.
so much. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Goodbye.